Our speaker this morning is Reverend Adams. Reverend Adams serves as the Dean of Spiritual Life and Equity and teaches in the Religious Studies and Philosophy Department. She lives on campus in Pine Court with her dog, Daisy. Reverend Adams.
There's a story in the Bible that I haven't been able to get out of my head in this season of my life that I'm in. Now, I realize that everyone in this community does not share my same faith background, which is what makes us a diverse community. But I think that this is a story that we can all get something out of. In this story, some of the disciples and friends of Jesus, who is the central figure of the Christian faith, were hungry. So they decided to go out fishing. They went out into a boat in the middle of the sea to fish, but they caught nothing all night. Hungry, exhausted, and discouraged, they continued to throw the net out into the water, and every time it would come up empty. I'm assuming that it's like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. They haven't been able to catch any fish. They were out there so long that night turned into morning, and these men were hungry, exhausted, discouraged. A man stood out on the distance on the shore who noticed the men struggling. The man was actually Jesus, but the men didn't recognize him. The man called out to them, "Friends," he said, "haven't you any fish?" "No," they answered. He said to them, "Try throwing your net to the right side of the boat." There's a film that I love that illustrates this exact scene, and it shows the men's initial response to the man that stood on the shore. At first, you see the men brush off his advice, sort of like, "We've been trying all night and come up with nothing. Thanks, but no thanks." But then you see one man who is known as Peter. Peter stops for a second, and it's like he has this revelation. Maybe we should try something different. Maybe we should try throwing it to the right side. So in the scene, Peter screams at the men to get up. He's like, "Guys, get up." The men are waking up confused, and Peter's like, "Throw the net to the right." They throw the net over to the right, and the boat begins to practically topple over because all of a sudden, all of this fish is in this net that got caught, and it was too heavy. They didn't even have enough net to contain all of the fish. And at that moment, Peter looks at the man on the shore, and he realizes this man has got to be Jesus. "Try throwing your net to the right side of the boat," is what Jesus told them. And it's that line that stands out to me the most in this story. I think of it often when I'm really frustrated about things in my life that don't seem to be going the way that I anticipated. Or when something isn't happening, I find myself, like the disciples, frustrated, exhausted, discouraged. My net is just coming up empty. And I think about Jesus telling them to try to throw the net to the right side of the boat. It's not working the way you're doing it, is it? Try the right side of the boat. Try doing something else. Try something that you've never tried before that doesn't make sense because you've been so focused on putting the net on the side of the boat that you're used to putting it on. My brother was venting to me recently in a conversation we had. He was so frustrated. And he's like, "I don't understand why I can't seem to just get it right in this particular area of my life." He's like, I try, and I keep coming up short. I keep failing. And I said to him, "Well, have you tried the right side of the boat?" Many years ago, I was getting ready to make this transition from one of my first real jobs as a young adult. And I'd been there a few years. It was a position at a place I was very familiar with. It was people that I'd known most of my life. I spent months applying for jobs. Some places responded. Some would send back a thanks but no thanks message back. Some I scored interviews with. I remember 2 in particular. I got to the final round of the interviews, and I knew I got at least one of those jobs. But both of them got back to me saying that they'd chosen another candidate. I was so discouraged. I remember not getting out of bed for days because I was just depressed. Rejection sucks. It doesn't feel good. You know in your heart that you have so much to offer, but then this door shuts in your face that basically tries to tell you that you're a failure. And for me, at that point, it felt like nothing that I was doing was working. And if you've ever felt that way, at that point, all sorts of thoughts float in your head. Maybe I don't have anything to offer. Maybe I'll never find a job. Maybe I'll never get into this program, never get into any school. Maybe I'm not smart or valuable. Maybe I don't have enough on my resume. And the thoughts just spiral and spiral. I think I love that Bible story so much because I can relate to that discouraging feeling of throwing your net out into this water and then just expecting something to come up and nothing comes up. I can relate to that discouraging feeling. It doesn't feel good to continue to cast your net down for fish just to keep coming up empty. And at that time in my life, all of those years ago, I thought about this passage and those words. Try throwing your net to the right side of the boat. What would it look like for me to put my net on a different side? What did I need to do differently? I remember clear as day visiting one of those job search sites that you go on when you're looking for a job. And I'd been looking at the same one, going to the same one over and over again. And I noticed that my job search location was always in the same few states. It was always in the same geographical location. I tried something different. I tried deleting the location altogether, expanding the search. I don't remember much about the keywords that I put in, but I remember pressing enter. And this job comes up. The first job comes up for a position at a university in California. And I looked at the job description and it literally looked like they were describing me. It was almost scary. I remember walking to one of my coworkers' office and who happened to be a close friend of mine. And I said to her, Chandra, look at this job. Doesn't this look like me? And she was like, yeah, definitely. And I said to her, but I would never move to California. It is too far. She told me to apply anyway to see if I get a response, just go through the process. And I did, because something told me that this was my right side of the boat. 6 weeks later, I was on a plane to LA, going out for an in-person interview. 1 week after that, I was offered the job. It was at that point, one of the most uncomfortable decisions of my life, moving 3,000 miles away from everything I'd ever known for a job at a university that I had never heard of up until I stumbled upon it just a few months before. I would have never seen it had I not deleted the location for the search. Had I not stopped and questioned and asked myself, what did I need to do differently? What was my right side of the boat? I didn't realize that I'd been looking in the same place for jobs, the same few states. I never, ever once thought about expanding my search because moving beyond my comfort zone was incomprehensible. But make no mistake, this was my right side of the boat and my net was overflowing and I had to accept this. One of the best personal and professional decisions that I've ever made in my life. I have met some of the best friends that I ever had. And after 4 years there, when I left, I cried like a baby because I thought to myself, what if I had never cast my net to the right side? I would have missed out on this life-changing experience. So this isn't meant to be this magic formula for life. You know, you do this, and then all of a sudden this is going to happen for you. That's not it. But I do think that this right side of the boat practice, it's about a mindset shift. Sometimes we don't realize that we are stuck doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. I don't know why I can't seem to get all of my homework done. Well, you're always studying with your friends. All you guys do is talk. Have you tried going someplace quiet to study? I don't know why I'm not getting better grades on my paper. Well, have you tried the writing center? I think about my own college decisions. How my whole adolescent life had been built up to playing ball. And when those college options for basketball fell through, I was stuck because I couldn't comprehend what going to college would look like apart from being an athlete. And it was at the very last minute, something like 3 weeks before the deadline to put the deposit down at the school, I decided on this small school in Virginia that my aunt happened to be a professor at. And my attitude was something like, fine, I may as well go there or whatever. And I'll never forget it. That same aunt was at our house visiting. And she said to me, well, before you put the deposit down, have you tried Temple University? It was a school that I applied to just to apply. I know you sixth formers know you have your little fallback schools. It was a school that I had forgotten that I even applied to. I never considered it. The next week we went for a visit, and I remember saying to my mom, this is it. This is my school. This was my right side of the boat. And while these are just school examples, think about all the areas of your life: family, friends, jobs, sports, other desires that you might have. Think about the areas that you might be coming up just a little bit short. Have you tried throwing your net to the right side of the boat? You've always approached it with the same mindset, but it's not working the way you want to. So like me and like the disciples, you are frustrated and you are exhausted and you are discouraged, and your net continues to come up empty. Maybe you need to try doing something a little bit different. Try throwing your net to the right side of the boat.